behind Jacob Zuma today, releasing a statement that he will not be cooperating with the State Capture Commission. This despite a decision by the Constitutional Court that he must do so. Now, Zuma maintains Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo is biased against him, and he wants to challenge Zondo's decision not to recuse himself as head of the commission. Zuma has also damned the justice system, comparing it to apartheid times. So what are the consequences for the former president of this open defiance? I'm joined now by Cathy Powell, Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town. Evening, Prof. So would you say this is a different approach for the former president? He's long been accused of so-called Stalingrad delaying tactics. This seems like a departure, outright defiance. I will not appear.
No, I'm not sure it's a departure. It's simply the logical conclusion of the attitude that he's shown so far. Remember, he did walk out of the commission without permission, which is already a crime. It's an offence under the Commissions Act. So although he's couched it differently, he has behaved actually simply in varying degrees of what he did today. And if you read the statement that he released, he's acting as though he's perfectly allowed to refuse to cooperate as well, that he is at least morally right. And by likening the current legal system to apartheid law, he's basically saying that the law is invalid. So he is still, as he was all along, claiming that he has the right to do whatever he wants, and anybody who claims otherwise is simply biased or an apartheid agent against him. I don't see much of a change. It's just an intensification.
The letter is very harsh. I'm going to read a chunk of it. He talks about the recent decision by the concourt to say that he must appear, mimics the posture of the commission. He goes on to say this conjures up memories of how the apartheid government passed the General Laws Amendment Act, which introduced a new clause of indefinite detention specifically intended to be used against then PAC leader Robert Sobukwe. The parallels are too similar to ignore, given that Sobukwe was specifically targeted for his ideological stance on liberation. I, on the other hand, am the target of propaganda, vilification and falsified claims against me for my stance on the transformation of this country and its economy. He is making incredibly serious allegations against our justice system in a democratic South Africa. What do you make of what he says? Will there be any consequences for a former head of state saying such a damning thing about our justice system?
Well, to the extent that he is accusing the Constitutional Court of bias, he could be in contempt of court, of the Constitutional Court, in addition to all the other offences he's committing. It's not in itself an offence to say nasty things about the justice system. I think that would probably be protected by freedom of expression. But you would expect him to actually back up what he's saying with some facts. Now, those allegations, the serious allegations, as you say, that he makes are so empty. And I find it almost comical, because the whole point of the Constitutional Court judgment was that Zuma was getting unfairly preferential treatment. The Constitutional Court it in effect rebuked the commission for not treating Zuma the way it treated everybody else. Now Zuma's claiming he's getting especially unfavorable treatment from the commission, which is sorry.
Tell me something, what penalties can he face for not only refusing to appear at the commission? I mean, is it simply contempt of court? And if it is that, what penalties? Are we talking a few months in jail or possibly a fine?
All right, if he refuses to appear in front of the commission or answer its questions, or he answers questions but he lies, those are all offences under the Commissions Act. The maximum sentence provided for those is 6 months, which is not very much, but there's also the option of a fine. And of course, if he gets a separate sentence for each of those offences, it could add up a bit. There is also the option that Zondo has of imprisoning Zuma until he agrees to testify. This has to be done in 8-day increments, but can be carried on more or less indefinitely. So if Zuma really wants to be a hero for the struggle that he thinks he is waging, he is possibly going to spend a very long time in prison.
Yeah, good point. You know, 6 months in jail or a fine, as you say, would just further his case that he's a martyr and that he's being targeted, I suppose. But isn't this, I'm just wondering how much it matters. And the reason I ask this is because surely the bigger fish is the corruption case. And that's really what it's all going to come down to. Isn't that ultimately what matters more?
Well, the corruption case, to the extent that it's a criminal case, is going to have a much narrower band of evidence, and there's going to be evidence relating specifically to the particular offences with which Zuma has been charged. Remember, the point of a commission is to try and work out how the whole system was working. And that's incredibly important, because if we can work that out, then we can repair the system rather than punish one person for what he was doing. So, yes, the corruption case is important, and whatever is confirmed by the corruption case has been confirmed on a standard beyond reasonable doubt, so we can be sure of that. But the Commission's work is incredibly important for the healing of the nation and for the repair of what seems to be a fundamentally rotten system. I don't think the criminal case can do that by itself.
Thank you so much for your insights. Cathy Powell, Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town.